This is the Fantasy Roadshow.
We are live. I repeat, we are live. Welcome into another episode of the Fantasy Roadshow. This episode is brought to you by Rule 1 Proteins. If you don't know, get familiar. Rule 1 Proteins is the best in the business. They got the best protein powder, the best supplements, the best vitamins. You name it, they got it. Go check them out at www.rule1proteins.com. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Podcast is available on all platforms. You guys know the drill. My name is Truck, and I'm inside of a truck. And I'm joined, as always, by Kulz and Shane O'Mac. And today we have a very special guest. We have an analyst for Front Yard Fantasy, Footballguys' very own Joey Wright. Joey, how you doing, buddy?
I am doing so good. Thank you for having me here. I think this is amazing that you are you recording on the back of a truck?
I am, yeah.
Phenomenal. I am so glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm technically at work right now, and it's a privilege to be able to do stuff like this at work. But yeah, I am in a truck.
And I got my start really in this industry by like having like a little bit of a gimmick. And let me just say, I love your gimmick. Like, this works 100%.
Thank you.
It's the Fantasy Roadshow, man. We'll give you like a brief. You may not know the background, so we'll give you a brief breakdown of how the Fantasy Roadshow came about and the whole, trucker side of it. So, the truck works on TV movie sets in Chicago. Drives. He's got a CDL. Drives a truck with equipment, all sorts of stuff, and during the writer's strike, I was moving from Chicago to Austin, and there was the writer's strike. So truck was doing long haul trips like in that time. And I was about to move to Austin, got approached by a company to Sports Ethos to do their fantasy football podcast. And Truck and I have been talking fantasy forever. And with me moving to Austin, I was like, dude, we got like a couple weeks. Truck goes, come on a trip with me and we'll just figure out how to do a podcast. So I jumped in the truck with them in Chicago. We went all the way out to Philly, did our first like live show in the bar across from Lincoln Financial, and just like we got wasted. But that's but like we were just trying to like figure it out, right? We haven't released that yet. We will someday as we grow popularity. It's like we're gonna tease that, like kind of dangle it like a carrot, but literally like went on a long haul trucker trip for 2 straight weeks and just figured out this is how we think you do a podcast. And we're still learning, but that's how the Roadshow name came, and Truck is still Truck currently. So
yeah, I love it.
Awesome. Well, highly anticipated guest. We've been flirting about the idea on X, on Twitter here for, I don't know, a few weeks, month maybe. So super excited to have you on. We're super laid back here, so just want to know more about you and how you came in the space and where you're from, where this passion of football and fantasy came from. So if you want to take it over and just kind of break that down for us, man.
Yeah, so I've always been a sports fan. My first love was not football, though. It was actually college basketball. When I was about 6 or 7 years old, my grandparents would always take me to the college that was in our local town in Melbourne, Florida, was Florida Tech. So Florida Institute of Technology. And they would take me to the college basketball games. My mom would take me too. And around the middle of the first, maybe the beginning of the second season, they asked me to actually be like a ball boy, which all I had to do was like wipe up the sweat out of a big mop to like clean the floors. To a kid, like I got to hang out there with basketball players. They were college players, but pizza at halftime and all the Coke I could drink, like I was sold. I did for like 5 years. So much fun. Got to only see one NBA player. I saw Dana Barros come down when Boston College came to play at a holiday tournament, and I didn't clean the floor quick enough, and he bowled me over when he stole a ball going to the hoop. So that was a fun little thing that happened. Yeah, I was just like a college basketball fan. I grew up in Florida, and so my first like favorite football player was Emmitt Smith playing at the University of Florida. I see the LSU bandana. I'm sorry. But yes, Emmitt Smith was like my first favorite football player, and that's what led to my love of football.
Well, you also see the Cowboys. Yeah, you also see the Cowboys background there. So
I flirted with the Cowboys for a little while, but then Eric Rett came out the year after Emmett and went to Tampa Bay, and I was a local Florida boy, so I became a Buccaneers fan. But I kind of was teasing before the show, like, can I tell the real story of why I'm a Bucs fan? I was actually conceived halftime of a Tampa Bay Buccaneers football game
Yes.
in the parking lot of the old Sombrero in my grandparents' motorhome. This is the story my dad tells me. And that's the one I roll with because it's the funniest one. But yeah, so like I was born basically to be a Bucs fan.
That's
That's
awesome.
the true story of why I'm a Buccaneers fan.
So was that like a tailgate type situation?
My parents were young. I think they were just looking for a reason to leave the game and go back to the motorhome. Probably.
Wow, that is
yeah,
outstanding.
That's how the Bucs fandom came to be. But yeah, I've just been a pro football fan my whole life. And then I got really sick in 2020, 2021 around there and was kind of in bed a lot. And I'd always been a huge fantasy football guy, playing with my friends, my main home league, and the team over at Rasball. I was in bed a lot, so I was tweeting a lot. And they said, hey, man, you got a great personality. Do you want to come write for us? And that was my first gig in the industry. And honestly, since then, it's just been kind of a whirlwind. It's been the wheels up since then. I've been lucky to make a lot of really great connections, and just, you know, being a nice person kind of gets you far sometimes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Shanomac, as the resident fantasy roadshow, you're the only one here that's conceived a child. Do you have anything to say about the story that we were just told?
I would say I love your father for telling you that. That's great. I don't know if I would be able to tell my kid. That's awesome. But I would like to know, like, do you have what was the game? You know, do you know who was playing?
Yes. So I have looked it up. It was 1981, November of 1981. I believe it was the Patriots and Buccaneers in Tampa Bay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did they get did we get a win? What's the
My dad got a win, apparently.
Yeah.
But then again, got to start pregnancy, then it'd be kind of a loss. But you know, I'm here, so. But yeah, so no, that's that's my story.
I love it. Yeah,
Nice.
no, definitely. You know, your personality shows on Twitter. That's how we first connected. I was like, I really like this guy. And Kluge as well. He's another guy that just does Twitter X really well.
It's one of my best friends in the industry.
Yeah, no, you guys definitely have something cooking there. And you know, I'd say like we kind of like to keep things laid back and fun, and that's definitely what you guys are doing there. Like fantasy can be very analytical and numbersy, but just keeping it light. I mean, we all are like industry consensus, and everyone is so wrong at the end of the day that like we just need to be entertaining and have fun with it. You know, like can't take everyone's takes too seriously. And
Absolutely. I host the Sunday morning show or Football Guys. So on Sunday mornings during the season, we're doing start sits analysis. You know, people are asking us, you know, who to start, who to sit. And like, listen, if we're right more than 50%, we did our job right that day.
yeah,
But at the same time, like I do the show with Jagger May and Jeff Bell, and we just want to have a great time and be kind of entertaining while we're giving the starts and sits advice. I kind of got the reputation of kind of being like Ron Burgundy, like, because I put the comments up, like I'll read whatever's on the screen, and the couple of them slipped by me last season, but I got good as the season went on of like not reading the dirty stuff. But there was one that really Jagger loves to bring it up. So
I love it. So that's how you became a Bucs fan. What's are we excited? Are we optimistic? Last year was definitely like what I thought as exceeding expectations. I did not have the Bucs winning the division. So give us your thoughts on like what last year, what the expectations were, and kind of, I guess start there.
I think once Brady parted ways, you know, people thought, well, the Bucs playoff streak's about to end. You know, nice 3-year run they had there, and then Baker came in and Baker played really good. He built a rapport with Mike Evans. The defense was a little shaky, but, you know, checking down Rachaad White with Baker Mayfield seemed to work out. Chris Godwin, I thought maybe was kind of a little bit of an afterthought last season, but I started to really kind of fall in love with Baker Mayfield, and I never thought I would. My co-host over at Front Yard Fantasy, Simon Grunewald, huge Browns fan, and he's like, dude, let me tell you something about Baker. Like, he'll go out there, he'll have some stinkers, but you are absolutely going to love him because of his passion. And after 2 weeks, I was like, I'm sold. I'm sold on this guy. And in my opinion, he's what kept Mike Evans in Tampa Bay. The rapport they built coming into this season coming up, though, I'm a little more worried. I don't think the Bucs addressed the secondary, which was their biggest need in this draft. I was sitting with the Footballguys team in Nashville watching the draft, and I watched them pass over TJ Tampa 2 times when they needed a cornerback. The division got a lot better. Atlanta got really good this offseason. Carolina had a top 5 defense last year. Last year I was coming in a little pessimistic. I might be a little more pessimistic this year, but that's kind of what being a Bucs fan is. We'll win a Super Bowl every 15, 20 years. But outside of that, we got a lot of losing seasons. So I don't think it'll be a losing season. I do think Atlanta's probably going to take the division. I'm not worried about New Orleans. I don't know what they're doing down there. They have good food, but I don't think they have a good football team anymore.
Yeah, I think Evans also recognizes he can make quarterbacks look really good, right?
Mhm.
And Baker's a guy that can sling it. So at the end of the day, that's what Evans wants, is someone that he has chemistry with and can sling the ball, which is what Baker brings. I think I kind of overlooked that because I was one of the people that's like, Bucs, this can be a rough year. I could see them being last in the division. I think I probably did have them as last in the division if I remember my predictions correctly. But at the end of the day, look at what he did with Johnny Manziel at A&M. He's just the ultimate professional. He's had an unbelievable career, first ballot Hall of Famer. How many years of that level of play do you think he has left?
It's been 10 seasons in a row with 1,000 receiving yards or more.
It's
and
incredible.
Last year he had, 13 touchdowns. He was just phenomenal last year. I think we got about 1 or 2 more seasons left. I hope he finishes his career off in Tampa Bay. I was already ready to say goodbye to him. I was like, you have given me everything I need as a Bucs fan. You are my favorite Buccaneer of all time. He passed Derek Brooks in my mind because as a kid, I got to see Derek Brooks, but I've really got to experience Mike Evans both as a fantasy player and as my Buccaneers wide receiver. The night that he got drafted, I remember because it was going to be Johnny Manziel or Mike Evans probably going to the Buccaneers. And I was like, please don't let it be Johnny Manziel. And Evans, and I was so excited. But he's been great for whoever quarterback we've had in there. He's made it work. So I think maybe 2 more years of quality production. He is 30 now, so he'll be 32 at the end of this contract.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We should have forewarned you. There may be an outburst at times, and that's Truck's his what is it, Truck?
I have a radio.
Yeah, he's got a walkie.
I'm on call. I get phone calls. I get it's.
I thought I cursed, and you were like, that's all I thought that happened. I was like, okay, here I go.
No, that was my ringtone going off. My apologies.
At Football Guys, we have the sorry Joe. If we curse, we have to say sorry Joe. But I got bleeped, so we're all good. I'm good to drink coffee, right? That's okay.
Yeah, drink.
I'm much better when I have my coffee.
Anything you want. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about a couple of the draft choices this year that Tampa Bay made. And that was in the 3rd round and the 4th round, and kind of wanted to see if that was a little bit of foreshadowing. You had 3rd round, you had Jalen McMillan, and then 4th round, you had Bucky Irving. So you've got Chris Godwin in the final year of his contract, and you got Rachaad White with only, after this year, they can get out and be done with a very minimal cap hit. Do you think both of those guys are back after this year?
Chris Godwin, I could see moving on. I do think it's encouraging that the Bucs are wanting to move Godwin back into the slot. That's what we're kind of hearing. And at first, I was a little hesitant on that. Baker was never really the biggest slot receiver guy over at Cleveland. However, we saw him and Cade Otton kind of get on the same page, and Cade Otton was getting a lot of his receptions out of the slot this year as a tight end. So I do think Chris Godwin's going to have a good season, but I do think we probably see him move on after this. As far as Rachaad White, I am the Bucs fan that's kind of down on Rachaad White. I think he's good at catching passes and getting outside, but if he needs to run down the middle, the stats show he's just not a good pound and ground runner. So that's what coming from somebody like Eric Rett, I mentioned him earlier. I'm used to those kind of big bodied running backs for the Bucs. We had LeGarrette Blount for a while. So I'd like to see them get back to that. I just think Baker makes Rachaad White fantasy relevant if we're talking just fantasy football. If Rachaad White moves on, I would not be brokenhearted at all.
So I agree. Like, I think I'm higher on Rachaad White than, I mean, you hear in the fantasy industry about the running efficiency. And I think 2 years ago, especially, a lot of that was offensive line and just having a banged up offensive line. I forget, there was a couple injuries there was I think Ryan Jensen's his name, right?
The center.
Yeah, he was injured. He's the biggest piece. He was the biggest piece of that line at the time, and he was injured. So I think some of that was injury and just having one of the worst offensive lines last year. Like, he is a playmaker. That's why I do like him. I agree with you in that, like, maybe he's not a 3-down back, and if they can find someone to be the guy that hits the hold hard and gets your power rushing game going, but he is a playmaker, and that's what keeps him on the field and keeps him so relevant. I forget the numbers. I always throw him out when I have this Rachaad White debate, but in college he had like a 17 touchdown season with, I don't remember, 1,800 yards rushing, something ridiculous. And he was playing at Arizona State, like Pac-12 football, not the best, but not the worst. He is a runner. Like, you see him with the ball, and he is a playmaker. He has explosive runs, and he just looks good rushing the ball. So I don't know. I agree with you. Baker does check down probably more than any quarterback in the NFL. So that plays into his favor, but like, that's also playing to his strengths, right? So
absolutely, you're correct in that.
Yeah. So like, the foresight of the coaching staff to say like, hey, we have a quarterback that is comfortable checking down, and we have a running back that wants to catch the ball in space as much as possible. Let's play call towards that,
Yeah. Well, and that's why I'm asking about Bucky Irving, because this was a very deep running back class, and he doesn't get really talked about a lot when you're talking about dynasty options. And to me, when you look at White, could be done after this year possibly, and you look at Irving as he led all FBS running backs in receptions last year, so he's used to those check downs. His combine numbers, I know, were not great, but his production at Oregon was great for the last 2 years. So he just seems to be kind of a forgotten running back in dynasty a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're looking for, I hate using the term handcuffs, but it's the one that floats out there the most. If you're looking for a good handcuff this year, I think Bucky Irving is one, and he's not being drafted, especially in best ball. I've been taking a lot of Bucky Irving because I want my Bucks too. But getting like that, I saw earlier there was a best ball stream going on. Getting like a really late stack of like a Baker Mayfield, K. Dotton, and Bucky Irving, you can get it really cheap, and it's kind of sexy, especially if you grabbed Evans or Godwin's earlier. I kind of do like that, but he's getting forgotten a little bit. I agree with you on that.
Yeah. So what about, and we talked briefly about the wide receivers. We know what we're getting from Mike Evans. You want more from Chris Godwin, but which of these young guys do you see stepping up this year, being able to make an impact on this offense? Is it the rookie Jalen McMillan, or the hot name from last year that we were talking a lot about, Trey Palmer? So what do you think?
Sorry, I saw flashes of Trey Palmer last year. I think him and McMillan are going to kind of eat into each other. I think Godwin's going to have his role. I think that, Evans, he has his role carved out, but I still like K. Dotton. If you miss on like the big tight ends to start your draft, K. Dotton and throw in together like a Ben Sinnott, somebody just let's wait and see. But I do think K. Dotton's going to get some work. As far as the wide receivers, I would probably bank on Trey Palmer having a little bit more work to start the season. But Jalen McMillan, as the season goes on, I could see ending up with the better deal there.
Yeah, I think he's a better wide receiver, the better route runner. Whereas Palmer's speed, I think he ran like a 4.23 or something like that. Started his college career at LSU, go Tigers. But yeah, I think I could see McMillan being the guy that if Baker establishes chemistry and he does look like a really good rookie and takes a big step, he could be the replacement for Godwin. And then it makes it like, all right, we feel better letting Godwin go. McMillan's our guy there. And then signing Rachaad White, trying not to pay him too much money for a running back. And then you have Bucky and Rachaad kind of, I see a trend becoming more relevant in the NFL. That's, let's find a running back with the style that fits really well with our offense and then let's go find another one so that player can just, or that style player can just never leave the field. You see like Pollard, Tyjae Spears. Gosh, I have like a million of these. I can't think of them off the top of my head. Corum, Kyron Williams. I was thinking, me and Truck were talking about the other day, and we railed off like 6 or 7 that were like, holy shit, it's happening a lot more than we think. So that could be, you said you don't like the word handcuff. That's like, we got to come up with a term for that, because I think it's going to become very relevant.
And I don't like backup either. It's almost like
No.
running back tandem is, if you think about it, because they're kind of working together if they have similar styles. So running back tandem. Whoa, did we just coin that here today?
No, we need to come up. We can come up with something better. We can come up with. We got to come up with something. We'll think about it, and we can tease that. Yeah, workshop it. This will be a teaser for later. Here today, these 4 are going to come together with a term for the tandem running back type situation. Oh, Jalen Wright and Devon A-Chain, they could be another one of those backfields. It seems to be that Shanahan tree too that is moving in that direction. But anyways, that's a light bulb brainstorm for later, and we're gonna have a term that we come up with.
Yeah. Did you guys mention, when you were talking about running backs, did you mention Rico Dowdle and Royce Freeman, that dynamic duo also? Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Shane always has to try to work the Cowboys in at some point in the episode.
Every episode, without fail, we talk about the Cowboys at some point.
It's usually negative, though, if it's when I'm bringing it up.
That's fair.
It's more negative than positive. Yeah.
Let's talk defense for a second. You mentioned that's an area that you would have liked to see improved.
Yeah.
Didn't necessarily. So what is the worry there? Who can we kind of like expect to see? Or, I think if that's going to be the Achilles heel of the team this year, how does that position them in the division? As you mentioned, the Falcons got a lot stronger.
I think if you look at the Falcons, it's just like a matchup bit. Let's just do a straight up matchup. The Falcons, they've got Kirk Cousins back there now, and they have very competent wide receivers on that team. I just think they'll be able to throw all over the Bucs, because you can't really run on the Bucs. Their defensive line, it's hard to run on them. So I do think a team like the Falcons can just throw on the Bucs all day long, and Winfield can't do everything for them.
Yeah. So when you're looking at the division, Falcons seem to be the one that at least made the most moves. Buccaneers are kind of walking in. I mean, what I would say is they're running it back with that offense for the most part, right? You add a couple of weapons to kind of add depth there, and it'll be exciting to see if like one of them can step up and be a very relevant, like difference maker type piece. But as you see the division right now, how are you feeling as a Bucs fan?
For them to win the division, I think I said earlier, I'm a little pessimistic. I do think the Falcons could take that, but at the same time, I think the wild card's still wide open. I hate to say the Bucs win 8; they go 8-9. That doesn't sound right, because I do think that the Panthers aren't going to improve to the point where they're going to win more than 6 games this season. And the Saints, I said it earlier, they've got good food down there, but I just don't think they have a great football team right now. Olave is great and all, but Derek Carr, probably the most disappointing player last year for me was Derek Carr in New Orleans. I just didn't think they put it together for him down there, where I saw a lot of promise in Vegas and then this time in Oakland as well. So as far as like the NFC South, I think the Falcons can take it. I think they've got the pieces finally put together. They've had 2 really great drafts in a row. The Bucs, like you said, they're kind of running it back. They're almost like walking the plank at some point. It's one point they're going to have to jump off. And I hope it's not this year, but if they just keep doing the same thing over and over again and not addressing that secondary, they're going to be jumping off pretty quickly.
Yeah, I wanted to go back a little bit. You had mentioned earlier, and I wanted to ask you about this, and I forgot we got on talking about Bucs. But when you were talking about, the shows you do on Sunday morning, you do it to start sits. Obviously, I think what I know you for is your start sits and salutations videos. It's just a unique thing out there that nobody else is doing. And I just kind of want to get the backstory of that and kind of the inspiration, how that came about.
Yeah, nobody ever asks me how it came about. They just want to know about the character. So I appreciate it. So yeah, I got hired by Front Yard Fantasy, and I was kind of like, what am I going to do? And I just asked my the president, JL Garofalo. I was like, can I just like go try to record something? He's like, yeah, Joey, go do whatever you want. Like, see what you come up with. And I've got 2 little kids at home. I've got a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old. At the time, they were like, can I do math here? The 5 and 3. And I watched a lot of Mr. Rogers. And
Right.
I always kind of grew up around Saturday Night Live and sketch comedy.
Mhm.
And I said, let me just go try to record something. Everyone does the same kind of start and sit shows in a studio, and they're great. Like, listen, I do one on Sunday mornings. I was like, but let's go out and like, I don't know, do something different. In the first episode, I just go to a park, and slowly it morphed into like this nature guy. And then a voice came about, and then I was just off to the races. And it's a lot of fun to do. I've been very protective of the character because in my mind, I've never made a bad episode except for the SeaWorld episode. And I'll get into that in a second. But yeah, I just grew up around sketch comedy my whole life. And I enjoy having fun and being able to do a funny voice and crack a joke right before I say, hey, start, Dante Hillard, whoever you want to say, find a way to bring a little humor into it. I went and talked to people at the Expo in Canton, Ohio. Earlier somebody said, like, what was your favorite moment at the Expo? And I did an interview segment where I walked up to a window and you couldn't hear me talk, but I just banged a microphone on the window. It's the funniest thing I think I've ever done. And it was completely improv, like completely on the spot, was not written.
Nice.
I think people forget, you mentioned earlier, like stats and all these great things of fantasy football and winning. That's important. But I think a lot of us started playing fantasy football just to have fun. And Starts and Salutations for me was just breathing some fun back into fantasy football, where there's still a lot of it, but it need to be a little more lighthearted. And I think I got the message across. I think I accomplished what I needed to in the time. I'll bring the character back at some point. I just have not felt completely led to do it. There's an idea that I really like that I can't really get into. That little teaser that he will come back in a different format.
Okay.
I did mention the SeaWorld thing. Let me just go into it. It's my last episode I did, and I was crushed after it happened. And this is why you should sometimes lower your expectations for things happening, especially when you're working for big corporations, working with big corporations. I had an agreement in place with SeaWorld to interview a walrus as Andy Reid. I had a hat and glasses, and they were going to let me do it. It was all set in stone. This is going to happen. I get there that day, and they say, we are not going to allow you to do that. You are free to film in the park, but you can't actually film with an animal. I was crushed. I had to rewrite the whole episode that day in the park, and I ended up doing a Sesame Street thing instead. It was fine. It was funny, but the walrus thing would have killed. That would have been so good. The jokes were so
awesome.
good.
So that is the tease that the character in some form will be coming back during the 2024 fantasy season.
I think if I didn't do it at some point in the season, people would be very upset with me. Yeah, I have one person that, you asked me how did I get started in this industry, and there was somebody that gave me a lot of advice when I first started thinking of doing this, and that was Dave Richard over at CBS, and I was lucky to have the relationship with him that I do now. He is probably the biggest fan of Starts and Citations, and at least once a month he messages me, he's like, when are you doing it again? I need to laugh, and I'm like, okay, it's coming soon. It's coming soon. So we'll bring it back this year at some point. We've got a fun idea. Like I said, we don't want to kind of recycle the same stuff over and over again. I already recycle my jokes to begin with, so let's not run a good thing.
Well, tell me about, I want to kind of know, like, what's your longest standing league? Like, who is it with? Is it with old buddies? Kind of what formats? How has it evolved over the years?
My longest standing league started in 2010. It's the Golden Gnome League. With my groomsmen for my wedding that I've known since I was 16 years old. It is my favorite home league. In its almost 15-year history, I have won the championship one time. Which, I do this for a living. Believe me, they bring that up all the time. And it's very frustrating to me. I've made the championship like 6 times out of those years, and I've won one time. I'm like the reverse Patriots. I can't win the big game. It's bad. Like the Bills, but I actually won once.
Yeah, we dealt
with
that a lot this year. This was our first year doing this, and in all of our home leagues that we've been a part of for like the past 10 years, if anytime you lose, it's like, oh, well, you guys are talking about it every day on the podcast. You should be winning. It was getting loud last year for sure.
I think it's harder to win a home league than it is to win an industry league, because no one will trade you in your home leagues because they all think you know something, that they don't, which whether you do or not, that's another thing. I always try to make good trades. I always end up sending more than I need to make a trade happen in my home leagues, and they still don't trust me. And they're all going to watch this, and they're going to say, oh, no, he sends bad trades. I'm happy to put any trade I ever post out there for everyone to see. I send good trades, and I'll try to mess anyone over.
What's something in the Golden Gnome League that you guys do that you think is like fun? That's you hear about like these different, whether it's a punishment or something that's like unique to that league that you've been doing forever. I always think that's maybe my favorite part of fantasy is how people kind of build their leagues, and over time it evolves.
Yeah. So it's the Golden Gnome League, and our trophy is the Travelocity Gnome. But it's painted gold. It's beautiful. But if you come in last place, you have the troll, and the rule of the troll, and it is a disgusting trophy. You have to display it in a prominent area of your home, and you cannot take it down. It stays up year long. The troll is about, so it's about 1.5 feet tall, and it has a beard. And when you lift the beard up, there's a big old wiener in there. It's horribly disgusting. You have to keep it up in your house. Have we heard of kids accidentally pulling the beard up? Absolutely. But you know what? You should not have come in last place. And then that wouldn't have happened. Your kids wouldn't be asking you those questions. The troll is the worst thing. And then, you get called a troll all year, and it's just awful. We like, if we go out to eat, we make you sit at a separate table. Like, you're not allowed to sit with us. You're just, I've never won the troll or lost the troll, however you want to say it. I don't know what I would do with myself if I ever ended up with that thing in my house.
Yeah, that can't happen. That absolutely cannot happen. So we see your background there. I know you are a movie buff, correct? Let's hear about that. I know Truck is definitely would consider himself quite the TV movie buff as well. I watch quite a few. Shane O'Mac watches a lot from the 70s and 80s.
I love Lucy. He keeps talking about it.
Yeah, he just
happy days. Yeah.
Two big things for me with movies. My grandfather at a very young age showed me King Kong, and he showed me monster movies, and he took me to see Jurassic Park when I was 10 years old, and it blew my mind, and it kind of unlocked this whole world of movies for me. And that was like our thing we would do together. When I got to high school, I needed to find a job, and I was in theater. I needed something where I could work nights and kind of maybe just on weekends. Got a job at a movie theater. And the day I walked in the movie theater, I looked at that projection booth, and this is the time there were 35 millimeter film, 70 millimeter film. We didn't have a 70 millimeter projector, but I got to work with one later on. I'm getting ahead of myself. But I saw that projection room, and I said, that's where I want to be. I want to be the one that splices the movies together. Maybe I saw Fight Club a little too earlier than I should have, but I wanted to be in that projection room. I did get into that projection room, did that for 2 years. Being the first one to put the movie together, sometimes getting a note from a director saying, like, here's how the sound needs to be. I was just totally nerding out the whole time. And then through my life, I just collected films, because it's like, oh, well, if I go to the movie theater, that's $20. I might as well spend $10 to buy it if I really liked it. And my collection's over 1,500 now. Every year I buy less and less, because it's just less that I'll want to own, because I'm just been accumulating everything. Today was actually a really big day for my movie fandom. I used to be a film critic too. I did that for 2 years. I have my own website.
Wow.
I put out a tweet last night. I watched Vanilla Sky last night in bed, and saw a shot from the film that I had never connected to before. They actually have Tom Cruise and Penelope Cruz walking down the street, and it's the cover of Bob Dylan's Freewheelin' album. And I was like, I never noticed that before. This is why I come back to rewatch movies. Cameron Crowe saw it, and I actually talked to Cameron Crowe, the director of the film, today a little bit. And he directed my favorite film of all time, Almost Famous, and tell me at 17 years old, you're going to get to like just correspond with Cameron Crowe a little bit. My mind would have exploded. My wife came home, and because I sent her the screenshot, and she's like, well, I know you had a great day. And I'm like, just unbelievable. Life is so cool sometimes.
Yeah.
And just the little bit of like, he took a minute of his day just to say, thank you so much. That meant a lot to me. And sent him back a few words and did say, if you ever need some help fantasy football, let me know. We'd love to help you out. But just get to tell him like how much Almost Famous meant to me. And like my wife and I at our wedding, like I walked down the aisle to Cabin in the Air, which is a piece of music that plays in Almost Famous that was very tough to get a hold of, and actually wrote the composer of the music, and they sent it to me like 48 hours before my wedding. And so
wow.
Yeah, it was a very cool experience today to get to chat with him. But yeah, I mean, my love of movies is just whenever I get some free time and I need to like really center myself, I'll either go to the movie theater or I'll just fire something up at home. So trying to pass it on to my kids as well.
Shane, I want to say that was breaking news here on Fantasy Roadshow that you talked to Cameron Crowe.
Yeah, it was just
breaking
some DMs. Yeah, but it was very
breaking
cool.
News though. We're breaking that news here on Fantasy Roadshow. Okay.
Sources say there is a professional relationship.
It has been said that Cameron Crowe is now my best friend. Yes.
That's funny.
So this may be a tough question, but I just you may, and it may be the answer you already said, but I love when I'm kind of like meeting new people. It's just my go-to icebreaker question. So like, what is the movie like? You pop it on, you see it on TV, you're going to stop and watch it no matter how many times, because is it Almost Famous? Is it something else? I've got my own that I just never get bored with it, and I've seen it, hundreds of times. But I'm just curious what that is for you.
I've got a bunch. I mean, Almost Famous is one that I go to. It's like my sick movie. If I'm sick, I'll put Almost Famous on. When I'm feeling good, I watch it too. But that's one. But that's not as fun to say because I already said it. So a movie comes on, like no matter what, I'm gonna watch it to the very end.
But if Cameron Crowe is watching this, then it is Almost Famous, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Now, you know what? Heat. Like if I get into any moment of heat, I'm there. Because there's so many good little entry points. It's almost like a highway where it's like there's all these little exits, but there's on ramps too. And Heat has so many good, just like whether you come in at the scene where they're sitting at the diner and it's about to happen, or if it's the heist, like Heat as a movie, I can just, no matter if it's on, if I see it like on the cable and it's like halfway through, I'm like, let's just put on Heat. So.
Shane Mack, what's yours?
Oh, it's easily Shawshank Redemption, no matter what. I mean, it's just, I feel the same way. Like, it doesn't matter when I turn it on, like at what point it is, like they're up on the rooftop drinking their brewskis, on the hot summer day, or, Andy Dufresne's out there, getting his rocks, and, it's just any point in time. It's just incredible.
The Brooks part of Shawshank always gets me. Like, it's just his little, it's like a short film right in the middle of the movie. It just gets me. Sorry.
There was a time in college where like I swore that I've seen The Town more than any other person more than any other person in the world. Mm-hmm. And then another one, I would say Gangs of New York. I went through like a pretty, I mean, that probably lasted a decade where like just wanted to put something on. Gangs of New York was going on. What about you, Truck?
Dumb and Dumber. Every time Dumb and Dumber is on TV, I sit through the entire thing. I mean, every scene is iconic. There's so many good quotable lines. And I feel like every time I watch it on TV for the next week, I am annoying my girlfriend to no means ends, just nonstop. Hey, you want to hear an annoying noise? I'm not even going to do it right now, but I do that too much after I see the movie. Love the movie.
For my 40th birthday, my wife and I planned a trip to Colorado, and we went to the Stanley Hotel where Stephen King wrote The Shining. But the other thing about the Stanley Hotel is they actually shot Dumb and Dumber there, though. We landed on the moon. Like, that's the hotel they're at, and they actually still have the newspaper up in the bar there.
Oh, nice.
So that was, I did walk up the steps like I had big boots on, and I did it all. So nice. Dumb and Dumber's fantastic. I love that movie.
Yeah.
What's the go-to snack, movie theater snack? Like, do you have a routine when you go there?
It for many years it was Twizzlers, but now movie theaters don't seem to really have Twizzlers anymore, because I would never sneak candy into a movie theater. I always like to pay for my snacks at the movie theater. But if they don't have the Twizzlers, man, I'm starting to buy into the Sour Patch Kids, the watermelon Sour Patch Kids. They're really good.
That was mine for a while.
Yeah. But Twizzlers like the OG for me. That's the one that If they've got them, I'm getting Twizzlers.
Yeah, those water.
Uh-oh.
What was that?
So Mike, sometimes his microphone has some technical
Explodes.
difficulties. Yeah, explodes. I don't know what it is. We've been trying to figure out what it is, but doesn't usually happen a lot. And I guess this is
All
the
good.
second time in a while. But
No
yeah,
worries.
sorry about that. There's a lot of speed bumps at the road show. A lot of speed bumps. But we appreciate you coming on, man. Your story's great. I love your work. Follow you on Twitter and everything. So keep doing what you're doing and go Bucks, huh?
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
I'm sure Mike wants to say something before we sign out.
Happen?
We were signing out.
Was it did the noise thing happen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna tell a story about the watermelon Sour Patch Kids. My uncle moved to he moved to Colorado, and I was like maybe a little bit after college, around that age, and I was going skiing, and I went into like a dispensary. It was like probably one of the first times like I'd been in like a dispensary, and they had watermelon Sour Patch weed edibles. And sure enough, it was like this type of thing where you eat one and then start to feel it a little bit. And they're so good that like it just kept on eating. Kept on eating them. And next thing I know, I'm like up on the mountain, like, okay, now you got to get down on this thing. That just made me reminded. I maybe haven't been eating them a lot since then, but that's not why. But anyways, so we were signing out, you said?
Yeah, we were just signing out. I was thanking him for coming on, and appreciate him giving his story and stuff. So I didn't know if you wanted to say anything else.
Yeah, let's do. So one thing we like to ask all of our guests, especially from different cities, like you're currently in Orlando.
Yeah, right outside Orlando.
So like if we're in Orlando, where is somewhere that you think we have to eat? What is like the restaurant, or like I guess we're trying to go, like what's the you must go here spot?
Yeah, so I think the answer to that question is you go down Park Avenue in Winter Park, which is just outside of Orlando, probably about 10 minutes outside of downtown Orlando, and pick your poison. Down this one street of Park Avenue is pretty much all the best restaurants in Orlando, in my opinion. My wife and I, the night after we got engaged, we had dinner down there. There's a nice French restaurant. Then they got an amazing barbecue place down there, good burger place. I mean, Park Avenue, Winter Park is the place you want to go if you want to get a good meal in Orlando.
Love it. Yeah, we always love asking that. When Truck was doing his long haul trips, he would be like in New Haven and just like getting all these pizza recommendations. So that over time kind of became a part of the show. Actually, the episode we started this is a good full circle. The episode that we did in Philly, we had like a bunch of different Philly cheesesteaks, and we did like a cheesesteak review. So
that's awesome.
So that was like the beginning of our Philly episode. And we did Skyline, and we did it.
Okay.
We filmed an episode in a Skyline in Cincinnati. So food naturally became like a part of the show as well. Yeah.
What stinks about Orlando is because it's such a touristy town. So many chain restaurants are here, because when people come on vacation, they kind of want to get food they know with their families, because they got to be easy. So we get so many chain restaurants, but like I said, this Winter Park area has just been like this little hotbed of like good little independent restaurants popping up.
Awesome. Well, all right. So Winter Park, that's where we go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been awesome, man. Lived up to expectations. I had a really fun time.
Thank you.
I think that I would love to have you on for like a Best Ball Friday, and we do like a draft. We run through an underdog draft sometime.
Let's
definitely collaborate on some stuff. I had a great time. I know.
Absolutely.
I know I speak for the podcast as a whole, and maybe when we get on like a NFC South preview or something like that closer to the season, we'd love to have you on as much as as much as you'd be willing to come on. So thanks a
sounds
lot.
great. I had an absolute blast here today for sure.
All right.
Awesome. Well, we
Appreciate
appreciate it. Everybody knows what to do. Buckle up.